All right, so let's get started. I will go ahead and share my screen, and you should see my presentation pop up. Promise I won't bore you with a lot of slides. It will be content, demos, and live Q&A. So let's see how this goes. So my demonstration today is about Microsoft Visio, Power BI, and Power Apps. So Power BI, Power Apps, of course, they are part of the Power Platform and they can integrate and talk to each other. In one of the community calls, actually, maybe 6 months back, I demonstrated how you could have a Power App residing inside the context of a Power BI report. And the Power App and the Power BI are sharing information and contextually aware of each other. In the last 2 months, I came across one very interesting aspect in Power BI, and that was around a visual called Microsoft Visio, wherein you can bring a Visio diagram inside of Power BI. So the moment I learned about that, that kind of piqued my interest as to what the possibilities could potentially be. And does the Visio diagram have any additional capabilities inside of Power BI wherein I can perform certain actions in that Visio diagram? That's where I started investing more time into this. And that's what this presentation is about. How can you integrate all of these three services together? Of course, Power Automate can also come in, virtual agents can also come in, everything can come in here. So before I deep dive and start showcasing the two solution demos that I have prepared, the first thing I want to reiterate is that you can have a Power Apps visual residing inside of a Power BI report. This is possible. The Power App will get its data from the Power BI dataset. You can decide which fields from the Power BI dataset you would like to pass over to the Power Apps. Power Apps will get all that data. You can perform CRUD operations on that data then directly in Power Apps by connecting to your backend data source. All of this is possible thanks to the Power Apps visual. Now you can also go the other way around. You can have a Power BI tile inside of Power Apps. And with this option, previously you could only and only add a tile from a dashboard inside Power Apps. Now, the advantages there were, yes, you could get reporting features or dashboarding experiences inside of Power Apps, considering how limited the charts feature in Power Apps is. But very recently, there have been a lot of updates that have been made by the Power BI team in this specific feature. And I would like to give a shout out here to Chuck, Charles Sterling, actually, because he brought most of this to my notice. And now what is possible with this control, which is still called Power BI tile, I would like this to be renamed. You can actually bring in an entire Power BI report experience. So the full report, along with its filters, tabs, Power BI interactions, click, drill throughs, everything is possible now directly inside of Power Apps. And not just that, you can even slice and dice your data inside of Power Apps. When you bring this report into Power Apps, you can add filters to that Power BI report from data from within Power Apps. So all of these things now are possible. And there is a new setting, or I'll call this a new property related to this specific tile. It's called Allow New API, which exposes some of these new capabilities because it plugs into the new APIs around Power BI. So these are the two ways Power Apps and Power BI can talk to each other. Then comes the third part here, which is Visio. Now in Visio, of course, I can create Visio diagrams and I can add shapes to my Visio diagrams. And with this visual, you can bring that diagram inside of Power BI. Now in Visio, you can add shapes, and those shapes can have information. Now the beauty with this visual is you can actually map your Power BI datasets to Microsoft Visio. And if the shape information, the unique key that you create for each shape, if it matches one of the fields in your dataset, you can actually have a relation created inside the Power BI report with your data set and Microsoft Visio. And not just that, you can actually do a lot of things with this. You can change the colors of the shapes. You can add information to the shapes. So if you look at the screenshots on the right-hand side, the first one is a desk reservation based system wherein I have this Visio diagram of an office space. I'll be honest, I stole this from the web. And in this, all we did is we just added a few shapes, which are those seats. And if you closely observe, those seats have different colors depending upon the sections they are placed in. If you look at the Visio diagram at the bottom, there I have an inventory management system that I'm trying to design. So I have my inventory or my storage space. And each of those spaces or containers are just shapes in Visio. Observe how the colors are different. There are certain shapes with green color, there's orange, there's red. Those colors are changing depending upon metadata. So you can create extremely powerful scenarios by leveraging these features of Microsoft Visio. So enough of slides, let's get straight to demos. So before we jump into my scenarios, let me first show you a very simple example of how you could bring Power BI into Power Apps. So here I have a Power BI report, very simple standard Power BI report. Once again, you can get this sample directly in Power BI. It's called opportunity analysis. So I'm leveraging this sample. Now in Power Apps, if you need to bring in Power BI, we have a control, and that control is under charts. It's called Power BI tile. And through this, typically what we can do is select a workspace of our choice. We have to choose a dashboard. So I'm showcasing opportunity analysis. So I'll pick this. And then you pick one of the tiles that you've pinned to that dashboard. So let's say I pick average revenue. So it gives me average revenue. So there you go. That's a specific tile in a Power BI dashboard that I can bring in here. But what if I want to bring the entire report experience? Here's my report. You can go to File, go to Embed, and literally just copy this URL. Go back to Power Apps. Under data, there's a property here called, of course, tile URL. Just go ahead and replace this with the URL that I captured from there. And if I do this, as simple as this, if I just increase the width, let me preview this. This is the full Power BI report experience directly inside Power Apps with interactions. So if I was to say, show me all the content where partner driven is yes, if I select that, the filter is actually being applied to my Power BI report. I can even switch tabs in my Power BI report. So you can bring in tiles, you can bring in the entire report experience along with the filters. But you can do more.
Hey, Reza.
Yes, sorry.
Questions about this one. I see one popping in chat already from Lise, and she says, do people have access to your app also need access to the Power BI dashboard?
That's a good question. So in this case, I'm bringing the report. Of course, they would need access to that report. This is just a reference to that report. So they would need the access. And I know I'm going to get a lot of questions on licensing. So let me call this out right away. You need to have, of course, the license to access Power Apps and the license to access Power BI. So you need both because you're leveraging both of these services.
E5 has both of those, doesn't it?
E5, yes, it will grant you both. Again, in Power Apps, it depends. It depends on your connectors, of course. As long as you're using the standard connectors, in that scenario with an E5 license, you should be good with this.
Gotcha. And another follow-up question here is, this is awesome that you can pull in the whole report now.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering about data sources. So, you know, we just did a really cool thing with Power BI. Actually, I didn't write the code. Someone on my team did, but Austin wrote some code in embedded Python in the Power BI report, and he used that Python to query DevOps WCL API. So we could pull and do some visualizations with that. And so that's how we're reporting on some DevOps things. With that type of API or any other data source, are there any limitations to data sources and what you can then embed into the Power App?
I don't believe there are any limitations here because you are able to get the entire report experience in here. So if you are getting, if that is working in the Power BI report, I don't see a reason why it would not work in this experience.
That's really nice to know that there's no limitations on that.
So apart from getting the report or the tile, what else can we do inside of Power Apps when I have this Power BI report experience? Well, you can actually apply filters as well. So let me show you one use case here, just one. In my sample here, I have something known as opportunity size. That's one of my fields in my data set in Power BI. These could be calculated measures as well, by the way. So this one has three values: small, medium, and large. If I look at my Power BI report, and if I look at my data set, and let's say I want to search for opportunity size, it is in a table called opportunity, and the field is called opportunity size. Now, can I apply filters to the report experience directly when I come into Power Apps? The answer is yes. And you can add multiple filters here. All you need to do is this: filter, so ampersand filter, I believe it's dollar, ampersand dollar filter is equal to the name of the table. So opportunity, case sensitive, you have to get this right. I have to get it right too. Opportunity, a space is replaced with underscore x0020 underscore Reza. How do you know this? It's all in the documentation. I'll share the link. So opportunity size is equal to, let's say, small. Let's say I do this, right? Show me everything where the opportunity size is small. And with this tile selected, the Power BI tile, I mentioned there's this new property called allow new API. Ensure that this property is turned to true. Right now, I have just fired a filter that says, get me everything from my Power BI data set where the opportunity size is small. So now, if I was to preview the app, observe how the filter is pre-applied to my Power BI report. You can see that it only shows the data where the opportunity size is small. And to quickly make this even more dynamic, nothing stops me from adding a drop down here in Power Apps with all those values, maybe coming from a data source, so small, medium, large. That's my drop down. Let me pick the drop down. This is full Power Apps features, parity right here. I can just literally do this, which is put double quotes, building it on the fly, taking a risk, selected dot, come on, value. Think I got something wrong here. I think I got an extra quotes wrong here. Maybe the quotes has to come here. There you go. So let's preview this. Now I'm driving the filter based on my drop down. So right now it's showcasing everything where the opportunity is small. Let's change it to medium. There you go. Right. So I am filtering my Power BI report with controls directly inside of Power Apps, and you can add multiple filters. You can add ands and ors. You can add all those. You can stitch your expressions right here. That is extremely powerful. One more thing you can do, one last thing you can do is if you look at the tabs at the bottom in Power BI, I can have tabs. What if I want to select a specific tab? What if I want to focus on a tab or just pre-select a specific tab? You can even do that through the filters. I believe there is something called, so page name, if I'm not mistaken, and report section, and just give the number. So let's say report section 2, it should highlight tab number 2. You can see it right at the bottom. If I change this to 3, if I preview this, it will pre-select tab number 3. So I can change the selections. I can define filters. I can bring in the entire Power BI report experience and take this to the next level.
So Reza, that's really slick that you're able to combine these two so easily. I noticed that your data type on this filter is a string, right?
Yes.
Small, medium, and large. Are those filters limited by which data type you can use?
They are. So if we look at the documentation in Power BI, the field types that are supported right now are strings, numbers, and dates and times. So these are the only 3 types right now as per the documentation that is supported. You can also write calculated columns. So you can write DAX queries and you can actually filter on those type of fields as well. That is a possibility. Okay, now moving on to my actual demo for today, which is an inventory management solution. I'll first walk through the demo and then we'll look at the different components for this. So inventory management, the data source in my scenario here is Microsoft Dataverse. It could be any data source of your choice. And assume I am a fitness company. We have our equipments come in. We want to store all those equipments in our storage facility. And it's basically an inventory management system. So as an inventory manager, I would like an app that showcases my entire inventory. And I can also see my office space, and I can look at the containers in that storage facility, what equipments are kept in those containers, how much space is available, is a container filling up, XYZ. So here in this experience, on the left-hand side is that Power BI tile experience. In this Power BI report, I have two tabs with two visuals. The first one is a facility map. This is the Microsoft Visio visual inside of Power BI. Now there is no Visio control.
You started with, just to make it real clear for everybody, Reza, you started by creating a Visio document that represents this diagram on the left side of the page here, right?
Absolutely. And that Visio document is right here. It's a plain, simple Visio diagram. And all we did here is added shapes. And these are the shapes, literally just boxes. There are no colors, there's no text, there's no information here. And each of these shapes, you can add information to shapes on Visio. All we did here is added a label called shape ID. And for each of these shapes, we gave it a unique identity. For example, this is container 1, so C1, container 2, C2, and so on and so forth.
I've got it queued up on my end. Would you like me to demonstrate in Visio how you create the shape? And then
absolutely. Let's show the audience how you can easily create something, an experience like this.
Sure. I'll do a much simpler version with maybe just a box or two on it. So here I am in Visio, and so you obviously will need a Visio license to pull this off too. So I'm just going to grab a basic shape like a rectangle, like Reza had on his diagram. So he had one here. And after I add that, I just simply right-click and pick Data. And then if I click Shape Data, it opens this new window here, and I can see there's no data defined here yet. But if I go to Data and I say Define Shape Data, well, guess what I can do? So to match Reza's example, you had shape ID, right? And then you had those different data types. And let's say this one was ID 1.
Yeah.
So now you can see when we click on it, shape ID 1. And to really quickly replicate them throughout your drawing, like Reza had, that U shape, you could come here and then now that one's shape ID 2 and that one's 3.
So that's how easy it is to create these Visio diagrams. I want to add one thing. Todd, you mentioned about licensing. The maker, the person who's creating that Visio diagram and putting it in Power BI needs a license. They need a Visio plan license. Microsoft did announce that Visio will be a part of your Office subscription. That is coming soon. It will be offered for free, by the way. The consumers of the Power BI report do not need a Visio license. I just want to highlight that. So only one person, which is the creator, actually needs the license as of today, and that will also go away very, very soon.
Nice.
Okay, so that's my Visio diagram. And all I did is I took that Visio diagram and put it in Power BI. I will show you how. And inside Power BI, once I have that Visio diagram, I connected it to my data set, which is Microsoft Dataverse. Now, as we can see right here, this is showcasing the storage facility. And for each of those shapes, I have certain information, the name of the space, the amount of spaces available, and the square footage of that specific space. And all of these data points here that are being applied to those shapes are coming in from my data source. The colors of the shapes are also changing based upon the data. So let's take an example. Let's take space K right here. This is space K, 100 square footage. It can add around 50 items. So as a store manager or as an inventory manager, I can see space K has 50 spaces available. And this, by the way, is just a gallery in Power Apps on the right-hand side. So if I select this, it will take me to this space and tell me that right now for this space, there's nothing in the inventory. It's empty. Do you want to add things to it? So I'm going to say, yeah, I would like to add. I am a fitness company. So these are the items that my company is potentially going to get in this inventory. So I already have them set up. Let's say I need the Olympic barbell dumbbell set, and I need 30 of these to go in space K. So if I do this and hit submit, that gets assigned to that specific inventory. But now if I go back to my previous screen, my home screen, space K now only has 20 spaces available out of the total space size, which is 50. So if you observe here, the color of that space or the color of that shape has changed. And it's changed to orange. So it's giving me an indicator that this space now has started to fill up. At the back end, I have an availability column, a calculated column that checks how much space is available, total space, available space, just calculate the percentage. And based on that percentage, I'm changing the color. I'll show you how I did it in the Power BI diagram, but that's basically all to this. There's nothing more than that to it. And I showcased filters earlier. Well, let's apply that same logic here. This is a Power BI report. I can use that filtering mechanism I showed earlier. So check this out. Here, you can even perform multi-filters, so like an in operator. So show me everything for space A, D, E, and F. 4 filters I applied right here. I'm saying showcase these 4 filters. Now, the moment I pick these, and if the demo gods are with me, which they seem not to be, okay, they are. What's going to happen is that Power BI report will refresh because I'm passing filters to it. And the filters are space A, D, E, F. Now check this out. It's going to completely strip out all the formatting for the other shapes because the data set that is being passed to Power BI, which is my visual in Power BI, Visio, only has those 4 data points. So now as an inventory manager, if I'm focusing on just these 4 spaces, I can clearly see what's going on right here. So that's the beauty of this solution. Now, if I go to my Power BI report, this is my Power BI report that has those 2 tabs. I have another one with a visual as well. But I want to show you the Visio diagram. So if I edit this, this is a Visio visual. And all you have to do literally is go here, go and just import that visual. And if it's already there, just click it and it will add the visual here. Next, it will ask you OneDrive. Please bear in mind, I will have to ensure that wherever this diagram is located, anyone who's accessing the Power BI report needs to also have access to the space where we store this Visio file in. It could be SharePoint, it could be OneDrive, or any other storage space. So once you have that linked, what are the properties of this specific visual? So let's check this out. This visual has 2 key properties. One is ID. ID is that key property that defines the mapping of the shape to your data set. In my case here, if you observe the ID property, and let me try and open this app called Zoom It so I can zoom and show you things as well. So if I pick this visual, and right here, if you observe, the ID property of this shape comes from my data set, and there's a field called shape ID. That means if I go to my data set, which in my case is Microsoft Dataverse, I have a table called spaces. And in this table, if I go to data and quickly go to custom columns, here I have all my shape IDs defined right here. And this is exactly the same IDs that I gave in those shapes in Visio. So what Todd was showcasing earlier, he created that property, put the ID. This has to exactly match. Once it matches, it knows which field data point matches to which shape. And once it understands that, then I can show data and change colors. So if you look right here back in my Power BI report, once I have my ID mapped, then I can showcase values. Here, I'm showing the text, which is the name of the space. That's why it places it right here. You will see the name of the space right here. And I can change this. I want to position this, let's say, on the right-hand side. So guess what? That text value now moves to the rightmost position of that shape. So you can define where they go. You can change the font size. You can add basic formatting options are available here. But the key thing was that color change. So how am I doing that? Well, one of the fields in the values property you can define as colors. So I have a column called availability that tells me how much space is available. And it's a calculated column that calculates the percentage space. So 0 to 100. So if the space available is between 80 and 100%, that means there's a lot of space, put the color green. Now let's say I want to change this color. If there's a lot of space available, I want to go to a lighter shade of green. You'll see that color change live on the Visio diagram at the bottom. You see, as I move, it will change that color right there. So I can pick the range and I can pick the color. That is extremely powerful because this is coming from my data set. And that's exactly what I leveraged for this specific scenario right here to define my colors.
Reza, getting back to your Visio file and how you were walking through the different properties. So you had the shape ID, and then you also have the property for the square footage and the size of it and what's available. So when you made those properties, you did the same thing I showed on my screen, right? You just made more than one data point for that shape. So, and then 100% of your data binding happens right here in Power BI. There's no code you have to actually physically write to say, I'm going to take this data from my data source and bind it to this shape. It's all right here.
It's that easy, literally. One last quick demonstration. Now I can go the other way around as well. In the previous example, I showed Power BI, which has that Visio, and I put it into Power Apps by leveraging that Power BI tile control, and I played with it, right, with filters and refiners and all that good stuff. But you can go the other way around. I can have a Power App, and this is my Power App that is living inside a Power BI report. There's a flow as well here, by the way. I have the flow visual. Here, once again, I have the Visio diagram. Now check this out. Here, I added shapes. My shapes are nothing but seats that the users can reserve. It's a desk reservation solution. So let's check this out. Let's say I want to reserve desk number 12. Now, focus on this part. I'll click this shape. I'm selecting a shape. You know what's happening now? It's zoomed in Visio. Now, that selection also triggers a filter. If I'm using this in the context of Power BI, the Power BI dataset knows now that I'm filtering on that desk. Because Power Apps is contextually aware of the data in Power BI, it's going to take a little bit of time, but Power Apps now will change its behavior. You will see that the Power Apps will go to the next screen automatically and showcase that you're trying to reserve desk number 12. There you go. I selected desk 12, it knows about it. The entire Power BI report also, the data set has filtered. You see all the visuals are now filtering along. And here I can say I would like to reserve this for the 30th of September. I say save, and here comes more power. This is going in my data source. Power Apps has the ability to refresh the Power BI data set. So live, it initiates a refresh. All of the metrics here in the Power BI report will change live. It's a live experience for the user. Plus they have this visual right here where they can make selections. And it's not just an image, it's a clickable image. It's dynamic. You can change the text, you can change the colors. I can think of so many more possibilities. Stadium sections, you want to book seats in an auditorium. So many options here open up with these powerful experiences. So that was it for
my
no
doubt about it. Great presentation, Reza. Really fun things you're building here. Question from Rob. What about Autodesk files? Has Visio got a connector where we can bind up data to them like you did does Power BI have a connector where we can embed that too?
I am not sure about whether Power BI has that. From a Visio standpoint, because I've spoken to the product team at Visio as well, who've built this visual as well. I think it only supports the diagrams and up to a certain version as well. So AutoCAD files possible, maybe. I don't know if there is any visual in Power BI that gives that.
Cool. Very nice. Well done. I like how you have two different use cases for it here too. Really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks again for sharing. And if anybody's wondering, Reza's got a video where he does the same thing on his YouTube channel. We have a link to it in the slide deck, and I'm sure it'll pop its way into chat here in just a bit as well. Thanks again, Reza. Come on back anytime. You've always got cool things to show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.